We're going to do the Public Works first, and then Finance, and then the Parking Authority last. Welcome to the Public Works Committee meeting for November 17th, 2015. Mr. Van, I think you had a request for us.
Yes. I'd like to do my 2 items first, so I can be adjourned from this meeting after that, if that's okay with everybody.
So do we need a motion, Roy, or can I just move ahead?
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to move items 6 and 7 to 1 and 2. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Is I don't know a significant answer?
Do what?
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Motion carries.
It's going to be one of those nights, isn't it?
The rain's got everybody weird. Okay, item number 6.
Consider approval to submit an LOI to the City of Muskogee Foundation for Robinson Park improvements or take other necessary action.
Mr. Van.
Yes, I thought I'd bring this to the Public Works Committee today because, as you know, I'll give you a little brief history. Robinson Park, we've been on that project ever since it began. And we have quite a few things down there, basketball, pond, exercise station, trails, playground area, splash pad, all these amenities we have at Robinson Park. Only thing is missing at Robinson Park now at this time is a community building. And we need I forgot the skate park, our brand new skate park we just built. Community building will be a great asset to our park. And that's what I come up here today is to, last year, we submitted a LOI to the foundation. And I looked at the LOI and I got it right here in front of me. And I seen some things that was wrong with it. And I should have looked at it before we even went over to the foundation. And I blame myself for that. Normally, when something has to do with a project, I normally check it out. But this time, I let it slip through the crack. And I can see in a way why the foundation denied us of going forward now. So today, this week I talked to an architect about Robinson Park and a building. And for the project, for drawing up the preliminary, the plans and the budget, and also including the plans, the elevations, site plan, and remedies, which would be in 3D, he's going to charge $5,000 or less. And I think that's a pretty good price. But like I said, we, as a community here in Muskogee, last time we done this LOI, we had people standing right there at that mic for it. And our community association is for it. The citizens of Muskogee is for it. So I think we need to move forward with it and get it in place and take it to the council Monday night so we can get it approved and go forth with it. So that's what I propose today.
I guess I have a question. We brought up something about Elliott Park and some of their kitchens and that sort of stuff. Does anybody give us an update on where we are with Elliott Park?
I met with staff. I met with the parks director, and we talked about, how could we go about achieving fixing the Elliott Park facility. It was based on some concerns that Councilman Coleman raised a couple of months ago. And so what we discussed was that we would have enough funding to fix Elliott Street Park within this current fiscal year. And so that's being worked on by city staff right now. If there weren't any funds identified, our plan was to make an application, for funding through the City of Muskogee Foundation at a later date.
For Elliott?
Yes, for Elliott, because I know that the Parks Department is going to be rolling off of their current allocation and going to be we'll be requesting additional funding for future years, and so we were going to try to roll that in there. So we're going to try to do Elliott Park this fiscal year, and that way that will stop us from applying for Muskogee Foundation funding. So.
And one of the things that the committee was waiting on was for Mr. Brown to get back to us and let us know, if they were going to have the funds, and then we would convene and see how we can go about being in agreement about what needed to be done. So it's moving along pretty well. Within the budget.
Councilman Van, did the architect have an idea of how much it's going to cost to build this facility?
Also, when we went to the foundation before, it had $450,000, and he looked at it, and he looked at the plans that I presented to him. He said, no way it should cost that much. It's just outrageous. Okay. So I just thought to take, like I say, he's very knowledgeable, and like I say, he's good. But so y'all trying to tell me we can't put an LOI because of Elliott's Park? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just really wanting an update.
Oh, okay.
Really, I guess my thing is we've still got Elliott Park to do. We've got the Martin Luther King Center that we're not quite finished. It's going to have community centers. So we're going to have 2 new community centers in the city of Muskogee. And I'm just thinking it might be a little soon. I'd like for us to get finished with the Martin Luther King Center, finish Elliott Park until we have to have another building that we have to maintain. And I think that's the only reason I'd like to push this off to another year, just so we can complete some projects and not have too many irons in the fire for our facilities manager that's to have to take care of and to oversee projects with. And that's just my personal opinion. That I think we ought to wait a year.
Have we found out where we're also at on the restrooms at Honor Heights and at Robinson? Have we even got that? Do we know where we're at on those?
We do. We have Mike Martin. He's already started the plans, so we're waiting on him to get it updated and everything. So he's getting ready to make the design of the restrooms. So Mark is not here to see where we are at this time. That's there.
Well, sorry, Wayne, I keep walking on you. I just have a couple questions. Say we decide to get, what is it called, a event center?
No, community building.
Community building. Would it be possible to fix it so the restrooms and that building are connected?
They could.
That way we wouldn't have to put like 2 separate facilities in at the same time?
Yeah, it's something that I would have to check into to see. I'm not familiar with it.
I was just wondering if that would cut cost on the community center and everything like that and make it where the restrooms and everything were already a part of that facility.
Okay. It was something for me to check into, and I
Okay.
can bring it back to your attention.
I believe it is, Councilman Hall. I had him go over that too. On those plans that I have right here, that they sent to the foundation, they included those restrooms at the time connected to it. So like I said, he's gonna get the cost down as much as we can. And what I'm saying is, I brought this before y'all last year, and this was before Elliott's Park even came up. And I took it to the foundation. Well, the council approved everything. I got the minutes right here. The council approved everything. We only had 1 no, and that was you, Councilman Hall.
I'm aware of that.
I understand. But the council approved everything. When we got to the foundation, we hit a loophole. And like I said, I can understand why. They turned it down. But this time, we going to have things in place. We're going to have the community more involved. That even includes, like, this price here includes the architect coming out to our communities, and we're going to have community meetings. And he bring the plans and everything and explain to the community how valuable this project is to us in our community, in our city.
One of the things that I'd like to see from the city of Muskogee, and I think it's only fair for our community, is that we take all of the needs that we have and that we define them, and we look at all the LOIs that we would be presenting, and we don't piecemeal them here and there and here and there, and we really look at what our needs are going to be for this year, and we evaluate what those needs are, very similar to what Mr. Gully had. I don't think we have all the answers yet on, how the restrooms are going to be constructed yet at Robinson Park. I don't think we have all the answers yet on Elliott Park, on whether that's going to be funded or not, the improvements that are needed on that park. I would recommend that we wait until we have all the answers and we know what our LOIs are going to be entirely for the city, and we present them all at one time for approval by the city council.
Mr. Johnson, also on this project here, I think we may have someone to help us out for his finances, along with also with the community. I'm just throwing that out there. And we definitely need this community building in our community because we got Silverton Park, they got a nice community building. Elliott's has a building that they can go in and use it as a kitchen some sort. Honor Heights has this. Spalding has a scout house. We have nothing. We have nothing there. We have a shade structure which is used for picnics and a gazebo for fishing. That's it, for shade structures. We have a brand new skate park. out down there where we can be having skate parties in the building, have meetings in the building. Like we need, in our community, we have no place to meet. So I think, like I say, this is a great asset to our community. And I think, like I say, I want to push this forward. I mean, all we're asking is a LOI. They can turn us down again, but we still gonna come back until we get a building. When we first started Robinson Park Community Project, a lot of people said, no, it'll never happen. But God worked it out. He opened doors for us. Just like he's gonna open doors, he just opened some doors for me today on this project. So I think we should go on forward with it. And I'm just pushing for it because we deserve that in our community. We have a big 30-acre park that needs a building on it. And I have no problem connecting other bathrooms to this building. That'll cut costs, like you said. You're in maintenance and construction, Mr. Johnson. You work for the school system. You know what I'm talking about. It will cut cost. And this gentleman, the architect we got that I've talked to, trust me, he knows how to cut costs. And that's what it's about, cutting costs. And this project here, $450,000 that time last year when we proposed this, way too outrageous. We just need something for me as a councilman sitting up here, I represent the people that put me in this chair, my citizens, constituents. My constituents wants a building at Robinson Park. I'm going to tell them, no, I don't think we can get there. But I think we can get there. With faith, we can do anything. Trust me, I know. You go look at Robinson Park now. Years and years ago, we had the same battle. We ain't got the money. We ain't got this. Miss Stratton's sitting out there, and she can tell you when we had our very, very first meeting for Robinson Park. And like I say, it's a very, very nice looking. I know, Miss Stratton. Don't be ducking. Mary Stratton at the time. She remember when we had the very first meeting at Grace Baptist Church for Robinson Park. And people then said, oh, no, we'll never get there. But go by and look at Robinson Park, how good God's been to us. So don't tell me God can't open doors. I know he can.
Okay. Do I have a motion or any other discussion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this LOI so we can get started to go to the foundation to get the funds and take it to City Council Monday night and get it approved so we can go to the foundation with it.
I'll second that with the, if we can amend it to any additional LOIs that we're going to request in the name of the city, that we do put them together and do them at one time.
Excluding this one?
Excluding this one. Okay. Because we have worked on this for over a year now, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you saying that, if this action will just direct the staff to put it with all of ours when we come back to the city council? Is that what you're saying?
That was not what I was saying.
Okay. So this is separate, and we're just going to go and ask the foundation. I thought that you were trying to put it back in the pipeline with all the other LOIs.
No, sir.
No. Okay.
No, I'm asking
I
today.
think this is a special request. I seconded that with the request that we add to it that for any further ones, that we would do them all together at the same time coming from the city, because I wanted to put Mr. Van's motion up for a vote.
So in other words, Ms. Langston, you're saying that put this one right here, LOI with the rest of them, and when we all go to the foundation, they all go together? Or
No.
Explain it to me.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll just agree with your, I'll just second what you said.
I got common sense. Go ahead and you explain to me. I want the public, well, we're here on television, to know what we're doing for us, our citizens, about this project right here.
I seconded your recommendation for us to vote on putting this one forward now.
Okay.
Okay. In addition to that, I'd like to amend it to say that any other LOIs that we put together on behalf of the city, that those be put together at one time, and we determine which ones go before the foundation.
I just don't want this to get dropped behind.
Am I convoluting that too much?
Well, Mr. Van will have to change his motion.
That sounds like another motion to me.
Okay.
Well, normally what we do is put all the LOIs together and submit those. So what you're saying is you don't want to wait on all those other ones. You want to move this one forward. But any future ones that we're going to do for the next year come back before the council and go as a group. So essentially you're saying this would be the only special exception to that requirement that they all go together.
That's true. I am saying that so that we can all vote on whether we want to put that one forward by itself.
Right.
Yes.
So I don't think that there would need to be an amendment to his motion.
What are we
just
voting
seconding
on?
it.
I still don't understand what we're voting on.
We're voting on to push it, let him push it through to the foundation
I'll take it to council.
without waiting.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I was going to say, I believe that Councilor Van, like any of the rest of us, have the legislative prerogative to move forward, but I'd want to vote simply on his motion and not
Future motions.
the future motion, because we're not certain how we're going to want to present our other LOIs yet. And I think that if we want to allow Councilor Van to move forward, we consider that and maybe have a conversation at a later date about how we want to formulate a LOI process for the city.
Okay.
Maybe the best way to say that is I'm seconding what his motion was, and we'll continue to do what we've always done and put them together for any others.
And that's just dialogue.
So I want to be
It's just
certain.
basically a second.
Yes. Okay.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the application of an LOI to the City of Muskogee Foundation for a community center for Robinson Park.
Now, one other thing, though,
No?
and I think, no, that's correct, that's correct, but one other thing that I just think needs to be clear, the LOI schedule for grants is done on a specific timeline.
Mhm.
So even if we approve it now, the foundation won't take a look at it until their normal timeline, which I think is in February.
January.
So just so you are clear that that's what will happen, and they won't take it up next month or whatnot. It'll be within their normal time frame, which I think is in February when they look at all these.
The reason I'm doing it now because last year we thought the Muskogee nonprofit could write the grant for us, and in the 9th hour, they comes to us and tell us they can't. So that's why we had to rush, and that's the reason at the time Councilman Hall said that we didn't go before the park board, and that was the main reason we didn't go before the park board was because we had to rush in the 9th hour,
Okay.
and that was the main reason. That's the only reason we didn't go, because it was a rush thing. And this time I wanted to make sure we're not rushing, and we're thinking, like I said, I'm glad I looked at this blueprint and this contract, this LOI.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Does everybody understand what the motion is?
Mm-hmm.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully,
No.
Janie Boydston,
No.
Marlon Coleman,
Yes.
Wayne Johnson,
No.
Leanne Langston,
No.
Ivory Van,
Yes.
Derek Reed,
No.
Dan Hall.
No.
Fails.
And the motion fails. Item number 7.
Discuss and take action to direct staff to bring forth a revised ordinance establishing minimum attendance requirements for members appointed to the boards and commissions of the city.
Mr. Van.
Yes, on this item here, I think we got all the boards in place, and I think that was a good idea. Councilman Hall, matter of fact, he came up with this idea of not letting the mayor do all the appointments. Come on, Councilman Hall, you don't have to smile though, you know it's true. But he come up with the idea, as councilmen, we should be allowed to appoint people to these boards. And I have done my appointments, and my appointments have been thoroughly diverse. But on this issue here, I had a problem last week, and I went. I've tried to get on the Parks Board, like on this LOI for this foundation. I tried to get on the Parks Board plan, and they put me on their plan, on the agenda, and I went. But the thing I had with it was the first time they put me on the agenda is the Parks Director. He had to be out of town. Okay, I understand that. But you also should have somebody else step up to take his place. Last week, I went, and I was on the agenda, and this was another one in the 9th hour. I took Councilman Reed with me. I took a couple of members off the Facilities Board with me. I took the Community Association with me. I got to the Parks Board at 3 o'clock, had all my paperwork there, ready to go. They tell me that, well, Ivory, I don't think we're going to have a quorum. And I said, well, you got to be kidding me. So 4 o'clock came, didn't have a quorum. We had more people interested in this project here than they were a quorum. I'm not blaming the Parks Board for anything. You know, I told Councilman Hall, a lot of people think we're going to come up here and fuss today. We're going to do this in a Christian way. I just didn't think it was fair for me and our people that came, taking this thing to be very important to us, for the Parks Board not to be there. And the only thing I'm bringing up today is I would like to see us enforce some rules for these people. If these people want to serve on the board, put rules in place where they'll be there. You know, because we definitely need some rules in place. Because on the facilities board, you correct me, Mr. Tucker, Attorney Tucker, if I'm wrong. On the facilities board, if we miss 3 times, we off. Is that correct?
In a 12-month rolling period, yes.
Are those excused or unexcused?
Doesn't provide for any excused absences.
Just asking, because we are. As a
Correct.
council, we are.
Correct.
Okay. I'm sorry. I'll just get some clarity on that one.
Okay. But I thought that was, kind of, bad. And I really thought it had something to do with me, but it didn't. And I talked to Mr. Hall about it. I was pretty upset. He'll tell you. I was pretty upset about it.
And as was I.
And he was too. But we, like I say, we can come to agreement up here. We don't have to fuss at each other all the time about things, But I just like to think the next park board meeting that they would, let people like to, as councilmen in Public Works, they call and say, well, you got Public Works today, you got council today. And we say, yes, we coming, or yes, we're not coming. And I think that's only in consideration of people. So if they'd have done me that way, I wouldn't have felt so bad. But get me up there at 3 o'clock in the 9th hour and say you ain't got a quorum out of a 9-member board, I have a problem with that. And also, that's why I brought these rules up today. I think we ought to put some rules in place for these board members, which I appreciate all the board members. They volunteer their time just like we do up here as councilmen. We don't get paid a dime. Just get a cell phone paid for, which I helped get taken care of for a councilman that didn't know that we got cell phone allowances up here. But I never did get a thank you out of it, but that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There you go. But, points need to be made, So that's what I like to say today. I like to bring some rules in place. So this won't happen to another council member or any other member, even when I was a citizen. So it wouldn't happen to me that way with the Robertson Park Community Association.
Do we make up the rules and regulations for all of the boards? Okay.
And
they have they're so varied.
They are varied. And it's identified usually in each ordinance that establishes a board what the attendance requirements are. Now, the majority of our boards don't have any attendance requirements, no minimum, the Parks Board being one of them. The Uniform Code Appeals Board, the Airport Board, the Planning Commission, the Streets Advisory, Board of Adjustment, and then this meeting, Public Works and Finance, don't have any minimum requirements that you attend. City Council, of course, per charter, is 3 unexcused meetings. The City Facilities Board, as Councilor Van alluded to, is 3 meetings in a rolling 12-month period would subject the person to removal. The Parks Board has provision that says continued absence of a board member could subject them to removal at the discretion of the City Council. The Wellness and Historic Preservation Committees both have 3 consecutive unexcused absences will result in removal. And then the Urban Renewal Authority has a failure to attend 3 out of 4 consecutive regular or special meetings will subject the member to removal. So they are varied. But it's up to the council as to set those requirements.
So we would have to change every single one of those ordinances in order to do that.
We could do an ordinance, much like we did the appointment ordinance. We could do one ordinance that would address attendance requirements for all boards and commissions of the city. Now, they wouldn't affect public trust because those are an independent document, but the boards that I've identified that we're talking about today, we could do that by one ordinance.
Okay.
So, Mr. Tucker and Councilor Van, what we would be suggesting, or what may be more prudent to suggest, is that we have staff review an ordinance that would cover all of the boards and committees that we have in place. And I'm certain that I don't know if there may be a need for an exception with some of them, but you would come back with something that we can all look at and see how it would take effect with the boards we have. Rather than having individual ordinances, I would assume that would be the best approach to take.
Yeah.
Well, and my dilemma with this is we got to be cautious ourselves for the simple reason we have people volunteer to be on these boards who have jobs. Like today, I almost didn't make this meeting.
Yep.
And to start putting, and we just barely got people on all of our boards now because we restructured them and everything and started going out and beating the bushes and getting people involved in them. We got to be very careful that we're not going to start putting so many rules on them that they're like, all right, I'm off. And then we're back in the same deal. We want to cause participation in our boards, not disparticipation. Mm-hmm. We really want to make sure that one incident doesn't cause us to start making so many rules that we're cutting off our nose to spite our face.
Right.
So I would caution against making so many rules for certain things. I would like to say we're sorry, Ivory Van, for not being at the park meeting the other day when you did. I really thought there would only be 2 of us not there. I'll give you my reasoning. I had 17 little 6th graders playing in a championship tournament, and I'm sorry, I'm their head coach, and I wasn't letting them down, guys. Sorry, that's what I do. Those kids meant a lot to me, and I would do anything I had to make them happy that day.
So,
Thanks, Dan. So, if you don't mind, so Roy, I understand where Dan is, but I also understand if you've missed 3 consecutive board meetings, then probably your priorities have changed.
Yeah.
And so I really don't mind there's not some sort of mechanism that if a board member hasn't been making it, can't make it for 3 straight meetings, like Ivory says, to get your quota. So I would kind of agree with Councilman Coleman over here that we should look into making a uniform code or a policy for that, for all of our boards, because, and whether it's 4 times straight or 4 out of 5 or something like that, but you know, there is nothing worse, and Pam and I've had it at the War Memorial. We're there and we don't have a quorum. And it's kind of hurts for all the people who do carve out their time to be at that board, and then not everybody show up for that. So I think that there should be some uniformity, if that's a word, in our attendance policies.
Well, and I'm not against any attendance policy. I just don't want to make it so stringent that people look on and go, but what if I have to be gone?
Right.
Then we need to make it like the
An
excuse
excuse.
policy.
I like the excused
That
policy.
the board has to vote on the excuse part, because then if
Yeah.
it's just, I don't randomly show up, then
But that could
I
be
can
part of
understand
the standard
yeah.
attendance policies.
And I agree with Councilor Hall. I think whatever we do should be more cautionary versus disciplinary, because it is difficult filling a lot of the positions that we have. We do want the people to be able to participate, but circumstances of life do happen, and we want to encourage and not discourage. So I think the cautionary versus disciplinary approach with whatever draft we look at would be appropriate.
So do we need to have a motion on this, or direction, or anything like that, or like direct staff? I make a motion to direct staff to develop a attendance policy for our boards. How was that?
I'll
That was
second
perfect.
it. It was so good, I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Mr. Van, I hear that you need to leave for a meeting?
Yes, I have to leave. I have surgery tomorrow, and I got to go home and get prepared for it, so I'm sorry.
Well,
but
good luck.
I
We'll
got
be
to
praying
leave.
for you.
Praying for you.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilman Hall.
You're welcome.
You know, hey, you're going to shake my hand now, right?
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day.
I wouldn't shake his hands, just crush it. Item number 1.
Consider approval of the Public Works Committee minutes of November 3rd, 2015.
Any additions or changes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Ivory Van. Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And
And the mo-
Ivory's gone.
And the motion carries. Item number 2.
Consider approval of the City of Muskogee Diversity to Work Internship Program or take other necessary action.
Mr. Root.
Good afternoon. It's a privilege to be here. Part of the RB department is community liaison and diversity, and Cassandra Gaines has been working on that issue. We have a variety of things that Cassandra's been working on. The first thing we'd like to bring to you is our internship program. This is designed to work with NSU, Bacone, Honors, and ICTC. We've approached all 4 institutions. They've all agreed to be part of this. Idea, obviously, is to bring folks in, students in from those organizations to work within the city. No charge to them. I think it's an excellent chance for us to provide guidance for these folks concerning the workplace and how things actually happen here. What we're going to do today, I'm going to have Cassandra is going to speak about the program. Kelly's going to add some words based on, from the HR side of this thing. And we actually have a special guest as well. So,
Cassandra, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Councilman. Back in September, we had a meeting. We all came up with the idea of having an internship here with the city of Muskogee. And the reason why, to teach our young people on customer service, how to act, and everything. And so our first meeting, we brought in the schools, the colleges, and sat down and had a talk with them along with Kelly. And after us talking with them, we submitted information, and they wanted more information. we wanted more information about what they are looking for, and we was telling them what we're looking for as the city of Muskogee. So I'll let Kelly tell a little bit about it, and then we will. You got the pack in your package, and I'll tell Kelly to submit what she's talking about, and then we'll bring up Eric as well.
Okay.
So when the students are brought in, they will have an option to choose the different locations within the city that they want to work in. We've given them every department within the city that they can choose from. The students are going to give us their inquiry, and the city is going to pick who those students are that participate. We would have 3 students from each school, correct, that we would choose to participate in this internship program.
Would that be how many students total then?
12.
12 schools? Okay,
There's 4
I'm sorry.
Schools. They would possibly be assigned to one department, or they could rotate within the different departments within the city and gain the different experience. I have spoken to different board members at the Muskogee Area Human Resources Association, and we are willing to give an orientation to those interns. And it's about 2 or 3 hours that will include dress for success, mock interviews, interviewing tips, what employers expect, and some other employment tips on how to better yourself and get ready for the workforce. We give that presentation annually at the Monarch for their women there who participate in their program, and it's gone over very well. So when Cassandra had this idea, I thought it would be a great opportunity to bring Mara in the Muskogee Area Human Resources Association into this and provide that training and opportunity for these interns within the city.
So County Bridges Out of Poverty has kind of the same kind of a program, kind of an orientation on expectations and speaking, business customer service language. Have your people gone, or is the human resource, have they gone through that training or working with Bridges Out of Poverty to put those two together, or?
Not in my department, no.
Okay, just curious.
And Cassandra may have reached out to them at one point or another for this project. She'd have to answer that.
Okay, thanks. That's fine.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No, I haven't.
In addition to that, I would I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I would also recommend working with the Eastern Workforce Investment Board, because they work with Department of Labor all the time and do work programs, especially for youth. And I think there's some things that could be very helpful. I know in reading about this, it talked about standardized work readiness certifications and stuff. There are CRCs, career readiness certification, that is nationally recognized, that they administer. And, I just think that it'd be a real good partnership to work with the people at the Eastern Workforce Investment Board, because we wouldn't want to be duplicating services. And they're, go ahead. sir.
Councilman Langston, I did meet with the Workforce Board, and we talked about
Okay.
the program, and the idea was, I don't want to duplicate something that you're already doing.
Right.
And they said, no, you're not. This fits in real well. And then if we can work towards this nationally recognized workforce certification, I think we probably will. But the idea is, at the end of if they do well, the city's going to say, hey, you worked here, you learned, you're ready for the workplace, and it'll be something they can attach to their resume when they go out to apply, saying, yeah, I do know how I get a paycheck.
Yes,
I know how that works now.
Yeah.
And I know I'm supposed to behave, all those sort of workplace readiness things.
Well, and I think it's
So
a
we'll work towards that.
fantastic program, and I just would encourage you to, instead of duplicating services, that they also have a lot of training already prepared, the curriculum, outcomes, things like that are critical. So I would really encourage you to continue working with them on that. It's a great program.
And we will. We did reach out to the colleges, and they was at the meeting. And if you can see in your pack, you'll see that we received letters from every last one of them. They endorse what we're trying to do here at the city of Muskogee. But at this time, I want Eric to come up. Yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Eric Strossen. I moved here to Muskogee from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I've had a wonderful experience due to all of the contacts, the connections I've been able to make. And by bringing this program into the city and formalizing it, you'll have plenty of these students who come from out of state who just leave when they get their degree, who want to stay because they have something here that's they can ground their feet into and they can get moving. It's extremely meaningful to have built the connections that I have for me now, and those are things I plan to maintain in a lifetime. And since I've graduated, I've decided that working here and living here is good enough for me, and I think that this can only add to what you guys are trying to do to the city. It takes some pressure off of the department heads, having some people to pull from to trust, and you don't have to look around for hires anymore. I think it'd be a wonderful program.
This is an easy
Thank you,
one, I
guys.
think.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Thank you, guys. Roll call.
I did. May I slip another couple of questions in?
Questions? I guess so.
Okay. I noticed it talked about no cost. And I mentioned to Roy just a minute ago about the workers' comp and some insurance. And I believe he had talked to Jeff Morrison, and that it could probably be, it would be a cost, but it could be just a small addition to the current policy, a minimal. So there would be a little bit of cost involved on something like that.
Okay. And colleges are looking to add an additional credit hour to the students, which will be a plus for them that's trying to graduate from the colleges.
If this
Great
creates,
investment.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add something, but go ahead, Counselor. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, I just wanted to also mention background checks and drug testing and things like that. We would probably have to share those costs. So we need to look at realize that there is no cost. There would be some.
But what an investment in our community. I have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And motion carries. Item number 3.
Consider
Thank you,
approval of
Cassandra.
the amendment to the lease agreement of April 26, 2010 between the City of Muskogee, Oklahoma and Davisfield Aviation LLC, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, this lease agreement before you today is an amendment to a lease agreement that was signed in April of 2010. This amendment has been drafted by our legal department. It was reviewed by our legal department because it was drafted by them. We have checked with the FAA to make sure that this is an appropriate amendment to the lease because it is an FBO facility at an airport that is funded by the FAA, and they have deemed it to be very much in order. R.J. Harris is here to go over the actual scope of the amendment, and Mike Anderson is here from Davis Field Aviation for questions if needed. So RJ, if you wouldn't mind, he's put together a very short slideshow for you.
Hello, councilors. City manager. What we have here is a request to modify the FBO lease agreement so that way they can move out of the old terminal and into the new terminal. What you see here is the current customer interface, what the travelers that are coming to Muskogee see, despite the fact that there's a brand new, well, 3-year-old building immediately to their right. As it stands now, most of the time the customers do not really see that nice new building or interface with it very much because they're doing all of their interactions with the FBO in the old building. So now this is what we're proposing, and I think this is what the intent of the city was back when they invested in the airport and in this new terminal, is that the travelers see this as the face of Muskogee, the new terminal, and as you can see, where most of the customer interactions will occur right there in the executive terminal area. So benefits to the airport, I want to talk about improves the city's image. That's one of the major goals laid out in the city strategic plan, and this proposal will address that directly. Improves the city's image by realizing one of the primary reasons for building the new terminal in the first place. Helps increase usage of the terminal. As I pointed out, all of those travelers will now be coming into the terminal, and we will be getting more bang for our buck out of that investment. It also helps compensate the FBO for loss of square footage. This is an aside issue in that one of their buildings that's been attached to the hangar for a long time has been condemned by the city, and so they're going to be losing 800 square feet, and so that kind of is part of the exchange here of compensation, in that they're losing 800 square foot, and then they're only gaining back 238 square foot in the new terminal, but it is premium square footage, and so they've agreed to that exchange. So and kind of a breakdown of that is, you see the parts room is 800 square feet, customer service area. The proposed new customer service area and office space in the terminal is only 238 square feet, with a net loss square footage to Davis Field Aviation of minus 562 square feet. This proposal also postpones any out-of-pocket costs to the airport right now, to any proposed beautification to the old terminal, because the old terminal would simply become a maintenance facility and parts facility, and the customers wouldn't be going in there, and so there wouldn't be an immediate need to beautify that right now, because the building next door has already addressed that issue. And then also we see that an improved FBO accommodations could command a higher bidding price in the future, as we see income and revenue and usage of the airport increase. So I think these are the core reasons why we at the airport and airport board, and as you'll see in the next slide, this proposal has unanimous support of the airport board and the staff. And at this time, we'd like to ask your permission to support the lease modification to move Davis Field Aviation from the old terminal into the new terminal.
Move for approval. Entertain any questions.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions? Roll call.
I know when this was brought up at the airport, one of the last airport board meetings that I was at, this was one of the most exciting things for the airport board to see this change take place. So I'm glad to see this brought before council.
And now that I'm here, I know that it is going to be a beautiful place. You all need to go and look. It's first class out there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
RJ, thank you. I've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Let's see. Item number 4.
Receive update on sidewalk maintenance and responsibility from the Sidewalk Committee and take any necessary action.
Mr. Narvin.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, a couple of months ago, the city manager requested that a committee be formed. He wanted the committee to review the ordinances addressing maintenance and upkeep of right-of-ways, and that includes the sidewalks and the mowing. The committee consists of 9 members. From the Public Works Department, there's Mike Stewart, Jim Wixom, David Gardner. From Parks Department, Mark Wilkerson, Rick Ewing. From RBE Department, Don Root. Planning Department, Gary Garvin. and non-staff members was Doug Walton and Greg Armstrong. Before the committee got started, first the city asked Oklahoma Municipal League to do a survey for us. On the survey, we wanted to know who was responsible for sidewalk maintenance and mowing of the right-of-way. OML collected responses from 126 municipalities within Oklahoma. The highest percentage indicated that the property owner was responsible for mowing and maintaining the right-of-way. But there was some exceptions, like abandoned property or drainage ditches or downtown areas, historic downtown areas. So the committee reviewed the survey, had a discussion amongst the committee members, and they determined that downtown needed to be looked at differently from the rest of the city. And they felt like downtown was the major priority to start addressing first. So the first thing they wanted to do is determine the area for downtown. Now, since the AIM committee has already defined a downtown area, the committee decided to adopt that map of AIM downtown. We want to do that rather than have several different designations for the downtown. So we used the same map. The committee then determined that the next step would be to have an assessment done on the sidewalks and utilities within downtown. The committee felt like assessment needed to be done and for both short-term needs, which would be safety issues, and long-term needs, replacement or repair of sidewalk and utilities. The Public Works Department, led by Mike Stewart and Greg Armstrong with Hallway Updike and Vellum, volunteered to do a sample assessment of an area of downtown. They wanted to do a sample area so they could determine if an assessment could be done on the sidewalk and utilities in-house or whether an engineering firm would need to be hired. They will start that assessment, I'd say, within the next 2 weeks. The planning department is currently putting together some maps and some layers of utilities to assist them in that assessment. Now, once the assessment is completed, we're hoping to find out all the existing issues with the sidewalk and utilities, then hopefully able to put a cost on it. The next step in the process would be then determining who is responsible for maintaining the right-of-way, sidewalks, and if it's the city's going to be responsible, how will it be funded? Now, there is no action required on this item. This was just, the manager wanted us to give you an update on what the committee has done. It's the very early stages, stages of the committee. There's just been 2 meetings currently held. But I'd be glad to answer any questions, and several of the members of the committee are present if you have any questions also.
Any questions for Mr. Garvin?
Mr. Garvin, what was the second highest response to the survey? I know you said the first highest response was that the property owners maintain the sidewalk. What was the second highest response?
Basically, the large majority was property owners are responsible, period.
Mm-hmm.
But there is some cities, and especially appear to be some of the smaller cities, where they do maintain, like all the downtown. Some of the larger cities actually also do downtown. Downtown was one of the major exceptions. Drainage ditches was also a major exception, and Mike Stewart, Public Works Department, takes care of a lot of our drainage ditches because it's hard to get to and to mow for an individual. And the same way with abandoned property. The planning department, code enforcement, we mow a lot of abandoned property. But there is some cities who do maintain sidewalks and maintenance of the right-of-way.
Was it a large variance? I mean, was it like 80%?
I would say
20%?
on the average, it was probably in the 70%.
Okay.
As far as private property ownership are required to maintain sidewalks and right-of-ways.
Okay. Thank you.
And we did feel, as a committee, we did look at it, and we do feel like downtown needs to be looked at differently from the rest of the city. And that's the reason why we thought we needed to concentrate on the downtown area.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Garvin?
Can I?
Yes, you can, Mike.
One of the goals that I have as we're moving into the winter months is to identify the current need down there, because we know there's a lot of areas down there that are failing and that need something to them almost immediately. So that's one of the things that we're going to try to accomplish also, is to get some of the short-term fixes in there. They might not be as aesthetically pleasing as we'd like, but it would get it safe and passable, and that's our goal.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Any other discussion? Item number 5 then, Pam.
Consider approval to accept a sewer line easement from Bill and Betty Akard, Trust of Muskogee County, Oklahoma, and authorize the mayor and the city clerk to execute any documents related thereto or take other necessary action.
Mr. Stewart.
Yes, this easement is to help with the construction of Motel Studio 6, which is out on 69 Highway. This is to give them access to the sanitary sewer system that's in the rear of that. which would be to the south of the facility. It's where the other two motels that are constructed out there currently go. They go to that same manhole, but this would require them to go across some private property, which simply needed an easement. And as our process, we have to accept those easements by city council. So it's a very short easement. It's right behind Studio 6, and it's to get them into that manhole. And Prague, I'm sorry, how many feet was it? It wasn't very many, a couple of 100 feet tops.
Okay.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Jenny Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. So we've already done 6 and 7. We have no citizens wishing,
No, sir.
so this committee is adjourned.
Want to call to order the Finance Committee meeting for November the 17th, 2015. Item number 1, please.
Consider approval of the Finance Committee minutes of 11/3/2015.
Any corrections to the minutes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Item number 1 passed. Item number 2, please.
Consider approval of claims for all city departments 10/29/2015 to 11/10/2015.
Do we have a report from the Purchasing Committee?
Yes, sir. Councilman Livingston and Councilor Johnson and I reviewed the report of claims with the city treasurer and the city manager, and I move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Gully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Item number 2 passed. Item number 3.
Receive report by Pat Conley regarding analysis of the fiscal year 2016 budget in relation to the Wildan rate study and take any necessary action.
City Manager, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Mr. Pat Conley is here tonight. He's our consultant that we retain to help us think through some directives that I've been given, one of which was to talk about how we were going to do the capital improvements based upon the water and sewer rate increases. And Mr. Conley is here to talk to us about that. This comes as a condition of approving the budget. I don't know if it's a condition of approving the budget, but based on when we locked our budget in from June, we said we'd come back and kind of walk through how we would spend the water and sewer rate increases. And so that's what Mr. Conley will be here to talk about.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Manager.
Pat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just pass them down for you. Yeah, we'll do it.
Here, just a second.
Good evening, Council and Manager. I'll wait for the report to be passed around. And does everybody have a copy? If you turn to the second page after the cover page, the assignment was to review and analyze the 2015 Wildan Water and Sewer Rate Study and make sure the projected rate increases will be adequate to finance the proposed 5-year capital plan. And the first step in the analysis was a review of the adopted 15 budget and the adopted 16 budget for the Muskogee Municipal Authority. And this just gives you background into, and this is straight out of the budget book. All the information is either straight out of the budget book or straight out of the Wildan report, except a couple of tables in the back that I created to draw some conclusions. But the adopted, if you look at line 1, the adopted budget for fiscal year 15 assumed revenue collections of $11,187,000 for water and sewer fees. Then if you go down to line 3, there was other revenue projected of $430,000 for total revenues in fiscal year 15 of $11,617,000. The expenditures consisted of a transfer to the general fund of $8,541,000 and a debt service payment of $3,070,000. And the difference between resources and expenditures was $6,000. So basically, it was a balanced budget. In 16, you notice the water and sewer revenue
went down by $400,000, and I think you all are familiar with what happened there. The one of the major customers is using another water source, so that their contribution to the authority was reduced by that amount. The rate increase in the budget consisted of $1.62 million, and that's it's about $600,000 less than the Wildan report. And the reason for that is the Wildan report assumed that you would receive 12 full months of that rate increase. But because the rate increase went into effect in August, and the bills went out in September, and so revenue was not actually collected until October. So you lost the first quarter. So that's pretty easily understood. The other revenue was $431,000. So you had $12,820,000, and that's $1.2 million more than you had in, and it's all due from the rate increase minus what happened to the reduction from the major water user. Then you go down to the expenditures, and I think this is real important. The transfer out to the general fund totaled in fiscal year 16. This fiscal year is going to be $9,750,000, which is $1.2 million more than the previous year. So basically, the rate increase, the net increase, the $1.2 million in revenue, was transferred to the general fund to support the general fund activities. None of it was left behind in the municipal water fund and sewer fund to finance debt service. And the Wildan report, as I'll show in a minute, had some money scheduled for debt service in fiscal year 16 for new capital projects. Anyway, if you go down and look at the revenue bonds was the same amount in 16 as it was in 15, and so you had a balanced budget. But the key thing here is all of the net new revenue from the rate increase in fiscal year 16 was basically transferred to the general fund. The next page compares the Wildan report and the adopted budget. And this format is going to be used for the next several slides because I looked at 16, 17, 18, and 19, and 20, which were all years in the Wildan report. What I did is I took the Wildan report pretty much directly and kind of summarized it in that column, that second column, Wildan report FY16. And then the adopted budget, once again, is straight out of the your budget book. I did break out the rate increase as part of this analysis. So what I wanted to do was make sure you understood the difference between what was in the Wildan report and how you budget, because how you budget is your cash flow, and that's really important, of course, to the results that you actually have to work with. So let's start. The first line, line 1, water and sewer revenue. In the Wildan report, they anticipated you would have, before the rate increase, $10,941,000. And then they said the rate increase would generate $2,230,000. And once again, that's a full 12 months collection of that 23% increase. And you only had 9 months. So that's the difference is about $628,000. It's very close. They anticipated you having other revenue of $269,000. Your actual budget number was $431,000. And then also, to get a global view of all of your operations in water and sewer, they recognized that you would have a transfer from the 2009 and 2014 sales tax funds for debt service payments. And but the way you budget, those monies stay over in those two funds. They aren't transferred to your utility fund, and they aren't transferred to your general fund, but they're there for debt service. So that did happen, but they weren't part of the municipal authority's budget. So I didn't include it, and there's an offset in the expense. So the Wildan report in the first year, fiscal year 16, said you would have $14,443,000 in revenue. Your adopted budget, so you adopted $12,820,000. So the Wildan report had $1.6 million more in resources than the actual adopted budget. And once again, a lot of that's made up of the transfer from the sales tax fund, and also the fact that you only received 9 months collections of the rate increase instead of the full 12. Now let's look at expenses, and they treated this a little bit differently, and I think you all are familiar with how they tried to present this material to you. They calculated what your real costs of operating the water and sewer department were, and they pegged that at $5,294,000, and that's straight out of the report, and that includes all the direct charges for your people who work in the water and sewer area, and all your materials and supplies for your water and sewer activities. But they also included some administrative costs for billing. They're in the, I think, the city finance department, and then some of the manager's time, and then I think some of the public works time. So they increased that a little bit, and that's typical of how if you wanted to capture the total cost. Then they said you'd have a transfer out in the general fund, to the general fund, of $4,558,000, $4,558,000. And then you'd have a loan administration fee of $460,000, and then existing revenue bonds of $3,743,000, and that includes the money from that the sales tax is paying off. You actually will have that debt service, but only a portion of it, $1 million of it, is going to be paid back with your sales tax, and that's in your budget. And then they said you're going to have some new bonds totaling $279,000. And the new bonds are for your capital plan, your 5-year capital plan, which they identified in the report. So their total cost of $14,334,000. So you'd have $109,000 left, which they said needs to go to build up your reserve. And I think you all might remember that. They wanted to get your reserve to over $500,000 in the water and sewer fund, the municipal authority fund. So the actual adopted budget was $12,820,000. And so the revenues and expenditures, and you balanced, and of course there's about $109,000 difference. I guess the key thing there is noting you don't have the $279,000 for new debt service in your budget, nor do they have the additional money to apply to the reserve that you've identified that you want to have, the $500,000, which I think is a month's worth of O&M cost.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
You keep saying everything's going to the general fund, but when we passed the rate increase, we told the public that we were going to put that money into projects, future projects and everything like that, so we don't have to keep trying to find money for that. Where's that at?
Well, theoretically, you should have, instead of transferring $9,750,000 in fiscal year 12, fiscal year 16, you should have kept some of that money back into the year for your municipal authority fund, and kept it for those projects. And Wildan said you needed $279,000 plus $109,000, so basically $300 and a little over, rounded up, $400,000 should have been held back. So that transfer to the general fund should have been less than $9,750,000. It should have been $9,350,000.
Okay.
And that would have been the start of what they identified as financing your capital needs. That would have been the start. So.
And that's only that way because as of now, we haven't passed an ordinance to be certain that happens. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Which we likely will do at some point.
Well, I'd like to do it pretty quick because it sounds like we're not getting our money where we need to have it, and that's what we promised the citizens of Muskogee, is that we were going to, the rate increases that we put in place were to help the raw water lines, the trucks, cars, anything that we needed to purchase. We wouldn't have to go begging the foundation or anybody else for that money. It would be there.
I think that was the plan, but I think there's been a little bit of a disconnect when all of that money, all of the rate increase was transferred to the general fund to help balance the general fund in fiscal year 16.
Okay, so basically,
and your operating cost in the general fund for water and sewer are virtually the same. So it really went for other things.
Okay, because
So
I don't
you-
want the city of Muskogee to sit there and go, ooh, the city council lied to us, and I want to know where that money's at. I think we need to hurry up and get that in place so that money's going where it needs to be so we don't look like we're making false promises to the public.
Well, I think that's what Manager Brown wanted to make sure everybody understood, that there might have some additional action by the council to make sure that the plan that to finance all those capital projects with the rate increases, he wants to make sure that that happens. And he saw a little bit of a deviation from that with the adoption of the budget, and he wants to make sure that everyone is on the same page. I think that's why he asked me to do this analysis.
Do we know how long it'll be before we could get something on the books that we could, an ordinance or something?
Well, we're going to let's Pat get through his presentation. He's going to come up with some recommendations. We're looking at several ways to get there, and so I think you'll be
Okay. Well, I'm just an old country boy, you know, and I got to say things when I think about them, or I'll forget them.
Yes, sir. No, I think he'll get there. Go ahead, Pat.
So on the next page, we look at FY17 Wildan report, and then a projected budget, for FY17 for the city in the format that the city would budget. And I assumed that there would be a 4% increase in the transfer to the general fund as a just to cover the extra cost of doing business. But if you look at the Wildan report, and it's the same format, they anticipated total revenues of $15,040,000 and total expenditures of $14,721,000. And that would include the $279,000 in debt service, as in addition to pay-as-you-go capital projects of $180. So nearly $500,000 dedicated to capital. And they also noted they would have $319,000 left over, and then that would go to the buildup of the $500,000 reserve that's the target for this for the municipal authority. Assuming that the 5% rate increase that's scheduled for fiscal year 17 goes into effect, that would generate $576,000. And you can see I assume that the city budget would also include that, and the city's budget number would be $14 million. And the main difference there, of course, is easy to see, is that transfer from the 2009 and 2014 sales tax for debt service. That's still going to happen, but it's on another fund. And then if you look, the key thing there, the operating expense and the transfer out for the general fund for the Wildan report, if you add those two together, they're very close to the transfer, I'm assuming, to the general fund. I didn't assume you'd have any more debt, so I kept that number frozen at $3,070,000. Then I went ahead and included the pay-as-you-go capital projects of $180,000. So using the city's those numbers, you would generate, under the city's format, $634,000. And the difference primarily is that new bond service. You wouldn't have the new debt, but you would have some capacity to issue new debt. I just didn't recognize it for this exercise. And you go through fiscal year 18, basically the same type of activity analysis would occur. The new rates, the 5% rate increase, there on line 2 would generate $605,000. Wildan, once again, the major difference in revenue would be the $1,392,000 from the transfer out of the sales tax for debt, and then but since I'm not showing any additional revenue bonds, they have a big new revenue bond debt service. It goes up to $1,342,000. So they would anticipate you issuing more debt, and I didn't include that. So my bottom line now is $833,000. So it's growing, which is good, and you would expect it to grow with those rate increases. The next page, fiscal year 19, it's the same analysis. Everything pretty much stays the same. You have another rate increase of 5%, generates $635,000. Once again, the major difference in revenues is that they're recognizing that transfer from the sales tax to pay for those bonds. And you're going to have to make those payments, by the way. Those are going to be actual debt service payments for bonds you've already issued, debt you've already incurred. And so that is going to happen, but they'll be paid for out of the sales tax. And then once again, if you add in the operating expense on line 7 and the transfer to the general fund on line 8, their numbers are basically very close to the assumed transfer that increases 4% every year. This year, however, their debt service goes up to $1,342,000 for new capital projects. But in your budget format, there's only $475,000 available, so you're $900,000 short right there in that fiscal year. And then the last year of their report that they projected was fiscal year 20, and we go through the same analysis. And the major thing to draw from this page is you have another 5% rate increase that's scheduled, and as the report, and I think you all adopted that plan. They increased the amount of new bond debt service to $2,332,000, so they're financing that $20 million capital plan they identified with debt over that time period, primarily. But I'm only showing you're going to have $1.4 million for new debt, so you're going to be about $1 million short at that point. The next page is a summary. I'm going to get caught up. These are the debt amounts that Will Dan recommended that the authority and the municipal government here in Muskogee incur to finance the capital plan over the next 5 years. In fiscal year 16, they say you need $1.7 million in new debt. Fiscal year 16. In fiscal year 17, $1,971,000. Fiscal year 18, $7,185,000, and that's for phase 1 of your new water line to your supply line. Fiscal year 19, most of that. Fiscal year 19, $7,672,000. That's to complete the flow line from your raw water source. And then the last year, $1,139,000. So they would anticipate you incurring debt of $19,693,000. The next page is just pulled off the column of the projected budget for each of those fiscal years, and using the same kind of analysis that they used, at the end of the year in fiscal year 17, you would have $634,000 available in free cash flow that you could use for new debt service, less $100,000 to build up your $500,000 reserve. So you'd only have $534,000. In fiscal year 18, you would have $833,000 less $100 for $733,000. Fiscal year 19, you would have $375,000 of free cash flow. And the last year, fiscal year 20, you'd have $1.3 million, which is, of course, $1 million less than what they are anticipating you're going to need. So, seeing that, I said, well, what can be done to make sure that the Muskogee Municipal Authority has all the money they need to finance this $20 million capital plan? And the simplest thing would be to freeze the transfer to the general fund from the authority at the current fiscal year level, the $9,750,000. And if you do that, then all those rate increase dollars will stay in the authority's budget and stay with the authority, and that money will be available for new debt. So if you do that, you basically get back to the Will Dam report. In fact, you get a little bit higher. In fiscal year 17, you would accrue $924,000 for new debt service. In fiscal year 18, you would have $1,529,000. In fiscal year 19, $1,593,000. And then in fiscal year 20, you'd have nearly $3 million, which would really put you in a very strong financial position in that authority, and you would be able to finance that $20 million plan for new capital with those dollars, and additional. You could be able to do a little bit more than the $20 million, which I think your staff would probably tell you you're going to need. But of course, what it does, it freezes your general fund, and I know there are a lot of very compelling needs in the general fund, so it's a difficult policy decision. But if the plan was, and if the plan is, to use all these rate increases for your capital program in the utilities, you really need to freeze that general fund amount at the fiscal year 16 level. That will guarantee that all those new dollars generated by the rate increases will be available for capital. So based on that, based on the analysis, I'd have 5 recommendations, and some of these, I've talked about already, and some of them are going to take a little longer to implement. 1, freeze the annual transfer from the Muskogee Municipal Authority to the general fund at the FY16 amount, $9,750,000. That will guarantee all your rate increase dollars stay with the authority to finance the capital plan. In fiscal year 17 through 20, implement the annual 5% rate increase to finance the water and sewer capital projects. That sticks with the plan you adopted or you laid out with Wildan. This is kind of a technical thing, but make the rate increases effective May 1, 2 months before the start of the new fiscal year. That way people would use the water in May, use the sewer in May, you'd bill them in June, you'd get the money in July, you'd have a full 12 months. It's just kind of a housekeeping accounting thing, but it's important. This next one I think is really important, and I didn't have enough time to provide you with information on an analysis of general obligation bonds. I've done a little bit of work on it for you, but I don't have anything ready tonight. But I think it's important that you consider general obligation bonds to finance some of your capital improvements. The best thing about that is it widens your revenue base. Right now, you're using sales tax and utility revenue really to balance your budget and to run the city. General obligation bonds are allowed in Oklahoma law. They're used all over the state. They're well established. There's a good market for Oklahoma bonds. They're good interest rates. They're tax exempt at the federal level. So they have a lot of advantages, and it allows you to diversify the revenue base that you're using to operate the city. And it would take some pressure off. If you're going kind of crazy here, you could take some of the money that you're currently dedicating with sales tax to capital, put that in your general fund. Your sales tax ought to be for operational. If I buy a Coke down at the Quick Trip as I leave town tonight, that should go to pay for the police and fire in the streets that are being used today. General obligation bonds, they're designed for long-term paybacks. They're designed for debt. So you're spreading out, as you make these capital improvements that last 20 years, the people who are going to be using that facilities and those facilities for 20 years are paying for them. So it's a really good thing, and it's well established, and I think you ought to kind of begin to look at that. That would really relieve some pressure, I think, in both the utility funds and in the general fund ultimately. And the last thing, and I think Wildan might have talked about this, and I don't know how far they got with it, but I would recommend that you establish an enterprise fund for all your water and sewer finances. And an enterprise fund is you segregate those dollars and the cost of the dollars generated by the revenues for your fees in water and sewer, and you also put all of your cost and account for all of your cost to operate the systems in that fund. And it's pretty much standard operating procedure in a lot of places. It really allows you to run the city like a business. It's the quintessential, to me, city activity that actually can be run like a business. And if you do that, in the long run, you'll make sure that all your revenues and your expenses, or your revenues you generate from water and sewer, will go back into those facilities and those systems. So, but that's going to take a while. You can't do that overnight. You have a pretty heavy subsidy from the utilities, as you all well know, to the general fund, and it would take you a while to unwind that. But ultimately, I think it could be done. I think you could establish the fund pretty easy. Getting to where you aren't subsidizing the general fund so much would take a long time. But you could establish the fund and start looking at that, and that would allow you a much better tool to analyze the true cost of water and sewer and where the money from the rates are going. It's not complicated to do it accounting-wise, and I would strongly recommend that you start looking into that. So if anybody has any questions, I'll take them now. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Conley at this time?
I appreciate the report. I think it's really informative, and really, we talk about the Wildan report, and there was really two different things that it was to provide. Is one, what is the total cost? And part of that was recovering what it's costing us to produce that. And so part of that's coming out of general fund, which is what our cost is. So that is what that subsidy is. When you, in your recommendations, which is what I really like here, where it's talking about freezing that annual transfer to the general fund, wouldn't that recommendation be that maybe that would increase whatever the percentage would be, 4% or whatever, to go with inflation, since part of that is going to be salaries? Or
Well, if you do increase it, I wouldn't tie it to any, I would only tie it to the cost of operating the
living?
water and sewer system.
Okay.
I wouldn't use it, so, and they've identified 5 million, roughly 6 million, for the cost of operating the system. So a 4% increase there of 6 million, it's like $240,000.
Okay.
And you could probably do that and still finance that capital plan. But if you do the full $10 million, that's $400,000. So that's another $160,000. And I wouldn't recommend it for cost not in the general fund, not associated with the water and sewer activities. And that'll allow you, if you freeze it, what it would do, it would allow you to wean yourself off the general fund, off the utility rates a little bit sooner. Which I think should be a goal, because you want to really operate the water and sewer like a business. And then, but your point's taken. I think you could identify the costs that are increasing in the water and sewer area and go ahead and increase the transfer.
But just
that
identify those that are directly related to water and sewer.
Right.
And put a cost of living adjustment on those.
Right.
Instead of a total freeze.
Right.
And that would just be perpetual.
And if you created that enterprise fund for water and sewer, you would really know what those costs were. So you could really peg it much more accurately. And the Wildan people did a good job in trying to identify those costs for you.
Yes.
And so you're down the road a little bit. You've got some good tools in place to start setting that fund up. I don't want to speak for Jean, but I'm probably just adding more work to her already,
She does wonderful
work. It could be done, And but your point's well taken. You could increase it for the water and sewer area increases.
Thank you.
Do we have any additional questions or any action that staff needs to take?
Mr. Brown, how long do you think it would take for us to start this process?
Well, we are going to definitely review this and do something in January, because we need to do something mid-year. One of the things that we got to take action on right now is when we adopted the Wildan study, we adopted the 24% subsequent rate increases. But when the resolution was adopted, it didn't spell out the future years. I spoke with Roy Tucker this morning. He said that we'd have to bring that back to the city council to clear up the resolution.
That's not the way I remember it.
Well, that's what I told him. I remember we adopted it all at once, but there's some issue. Roy, you could do a better job explaining the resolution.
Well, I mean, am I wrong? I didn't think that's what we adopted.
Mr. Tucker, do you have any recommendations for us at this point?
Well, if the will of the council was to adopt the Wildan study, it did include the additional rate increases, 5% for 3 years. For 5 years. For the resolution that was presented, the only increase that was anticipated was the CPI index, which is essentially the cost of living increase. What happened was I watched the meeting minutes for July 22nd, and Councilman Hall asked the question whether adopting this resolution, which included the increase, included a 5% increase. The mayor then said, "Are you talking about the CPI, cost of living increase?" And you said yes. And so that was incorporated into the resolution. And that has been in the water resolution for the last 3 or 4 years. Every year we look at the CPI and make a determination if it needs to raise anywhere from 1% to 3%. But the Wildan study was wholly different, and that recommended a flat 5% increase in addition to whatever the CPI was. And so that's what we need to correct in order to accomplish Mr. Conley has suggested with the additional rate increases. But when we drafted the resolution, I did not incorporate that in there because that was not my understanding of what the council wanted. But in reviewing the meeting minutes, it was wholly unclear. So that's why we need to correct that if that's what the intent was.
Yes, we probably do.
Drive us home, Roy.
You got it.
What do we need to do from here?
On this one, I don't think that there is any necessary action that needs to be taken at this time. I will bring back the resolution to make the correction on the water rates to include the subsequent increases, and then we'll have that as a separate action item. But this can be to, the manager can take this as direction to incorporate the plan into subsequent budget years, which is all I think that it was intended to do, was to be a report, unless
Yeah, it's a report. It's a directive
incorrect.
I was given to bring back information on how we're going to go about paying for the water and sewer improvements. We have some other items that will come next meeting, but this is just an update to give you a clear understanding of where we're at with the water and sewer rate increases, our financial ability to actually pay for the projects, as well as some recommendations that we are going to implement one or maybe two of these things as I see it. So that'll be coming in January.
Mr. Conley, I appreciate your report. Even though I'm not very much for us keep going out to consultants. I think we're consulting ourselves to death and our budget to death by using them.
Oh.
But it was a good report.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Thank you, Mr. Conley.
Thank you.
So with that being said, we'll move on to item number 4.
Consider approval to accept the lowest and best bids from Simpson Carpentry in the amount of $89,125 to repair 5 structures, and Tom Crabtree in the amount of $88,570 for 5 structures to repair a total of 10 structures through the Muskogee Rehabilitation and Revitalization Program, or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin.
Chairman, members of the committee, we went out for bid to repair 10 additional structures for our housing program. The inspection department reviewed the bids and recommended the low bid for each individual structure. The low bids were Alfred Simpson on 5 of the structures in the amount of $89,125, and Tom Crabtree for 5 structures in the amount of $88,570. Again, total of 10 structures. Total cost is $177,695. Purchasing committee did recommend approval and also told purchasing committee that with this amount, if you add that to the 6 that had been previously repaired at $105,700, that'll leave us a balance of $16,600 within the grant. The grant was $300,000 total. So we think we'll be able to repair one more house, but we want to get these 10 repaired before we accept bids for additional house to make sure in case there's any change orders. But we are recommending approval of low bid, again, to Simpson and to Tom Crabtree. Be glad to answer any questions.
I want to just ask, you told us earlier today that this makes a total of 206?
206 structures at a total cost of just a little over, I think, $3.3 million. It began in actually 2007 when we started this program.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Gully?
Yes.
Janie Boydston?
Yes.
Marlon Coleman?
Yes.
Wayne Johnson?
Yes.
Leanne Langston?
Yes.
Derek Reed?
Yes.
Dan Hall?
Yes.
Item 4 passed. Item number 5.
Consider approving a resolution declaring the parcel of property located at 230 North 34th Street as surplus property and authorize the transfer of property to Louis Slape or take other necessary action.
Mr. Garvin.
Yes, we are recommending approval of the resolution to declare the property surplus and to transfer it to Mr. Slate. This property consists of 13,300 square feet. It's zoned R1 single family. This property was actually donated to the city of Muskogee just a few months ago, and we brought it through council, and y'all accepted it as a donation. There was an existing dilapidated structure on the property that was removed. Mr. Slape wants to obtain the property and build a new single-family dwelling on the property. He also wants to participate in the incentive program. And if you look at the incentive program, one of the additional incentives to the $25,000 was if we had any lots available or at the city-owned, we would make available to a builder if he built a new single-family dwelling on the property, which Mr. Slape is going to do. So we'd recommend approval of the resolution. Be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for Mr. Garvin?
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
I'm thinking we're going to obtain this next item because I don't see Chief.
Yeah, we had a police.
We'll move that to
Shoot,
City
December-
Council.
Okay.
If you want to do the move to
Well, we
straight to
got
City Council.
we got so much other stuff on
Oh,
City
okay.
Council. Why don't we just do December 8th? It'll fill up the meeting.
Table it.
Well, defer it until December 8th, or table until December 8th.
Okay.
Is
I
it a
know it's an
public-
We need to
incident
make a
going on.
motion or anything?
Is that a, why don't you just take no action and we can
No action.
find the appropriate
Yeah,
date to put it
okay.
on?
Okay.
I'll find today.
All right. So with that being stated, let's go to item number 7.
Consider approval of the appointment of Angie O'Neill to the War Memorial Trust Authority to serve a 3-year term beginning on December 1st, 2015, and ending on November 30th, 2018, replacing Nick Guadaliardo, or take other necessary action.
Deputy Mayor.
This is my appointment. Angie used to work in the city manager's office and now is working for the Chamber of Commerce, and I think she'll be a nice addition to our board.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Item number 7 passed. Item number 8.
Consider approval of the appointment of Kathy Hammonds to the War Memorial Trust Authority to serve a 3-year term beginning on December 1st, 2015, and ending on November 30th, 2018, replacing George Abel, or take other necessary action.
Dan Van.
This is my appointed to the War Memorial, Ms. Hammonds. That name may sound familiar to you. That's our ex-city mayor's mother, and I'm excited about this. Not as excited as she is. She's been wanting to get on a board, and we finally got the paperwork in to get it on. So she's excited. Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Dan Van. Any further discussion?
Is that in the minutes?
It will be.
Okay, just checking.
Roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
We're finished. That is the Finance Committee.
And we will call the special call of the Muskogee Parking Authority. Roll call.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Present.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Leanne Langston.
Here.
Ivory Van. Derek Reed.
Yes. Here.
Yes, and here. Item number 1.
Consider approval of special call parking authority minutes of June 16, 2015, and July 13th of 2015.
Any additions or changes?
Move the approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 2.
Discuss and take action on paving 2 parking lots within the downtown depot district.
Mr. Brown. Or
Yes.
would you like me to go for this one?
Why not?
Okay. Councilman Van brought up about 2 months ago about paving the lot north of Columbus Street between 3rd and 4th Streets. At that time, we thought there might have been a business entity that was interested in that property. That doesn't look like that's going to happen now. So as on our budget meetings with the city managers, the mayor and I were talking, and I wanted to bring it back up for us to start talking about paving that parking lot with Global Spectrum, with Muskogee Little Theater. There's going to need some extra parking. The parking authority had $840,000 in it, so the money was there, has to be used for parking. At that time, we also talked with Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame with their Thursday night concerts and what they're doing now, that we probably ought to go ahead and, since the funds are there, that we ought to look at paving that parking lot also. The mayor brought up that downtown Muskogee, Inc. already had some drawings, and we were going to ask the city manager to reach out to the entities, and I think we got a email from Roger Bell that the depot committee would also like to be in that. So really, what I'm wanting to do is just get the ball rolling So, because the Muskogee Little Theater is going to be finished in a few months, Music Hall of Fame, there's a lot happening there. Global Spectrum's bringing out a lot of concerts. Kind of like to get the ball rolling and like to get all the interested parties together at one group. And so really that's, to me, is what we need to do is direct staff to bring everybody together and come up with some plans that meets everybody's specifications. And really, let's make downtown Muskogee look really good instead of parking on gravel parking lots, on grass. I mean, last couple of events I've been at Muskogee at the Music Hall of Fame have been kind of embarrassing to walk across that parking lot with the gravel and that sort of stuff. And that should be kind of a crown jewel. So, don't mean to steal your thunder, Howard, but
No. I think we missed. We definitely got to reach out to our other resource partner, DMI, and get those guys at the table. And then
the depot.
See if there's anybody else that we probably missed out, Gary, I think we need to do that. We unfortunately we omitted DMI, and they're on this board, so we created some issues for them.
And they're a depot district board also.
Yes, there's
And I think
a good
they-
group.
Yes.
I think we just need to get everybody together and have a plan. The money's there, and I understand it from the city attorney, it has to be used for parking, and it can't be moved anywhere else. And so instead of us accumulating some funds, I think this is just a good spot for it with all that's happening in our downtown. So
Move as presented.
Second.
to direct staff to bring the parties together and bring back a set of plans for us.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any thoughts or discussions, or roll call?
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Leanne Langston.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
The motion carries. See no further business. We are adjourned. Thank you all for your time.